Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
And here we are, Monday, 22nd of June. Glad you're here with us. Sports IQ with Larry Smith. A change in the calendar this year. The NBA draft usually falls on a Thursday night. This year, though, it's a two-night event, Tuesday, Wednesday. Round one is tomorrow night. Round two, Wednesday night on ABC and ESPN. And so we thought we would revisit a couple of recent conversations to get you ready for the draft. And so the mover and shakers, really, the top players in the top 10, really not much movement there. In these past several weeks since they had the combines and all the different tryouts and things and the workouts back in May. We'll talk to Stephen Gillespie coming up, also Matt Babcock here on the show. Happy birthday today to former U.S. Open champion golfer Dustin Johnson. He turns 42 today. Former gold medal speed skater, the Olympian Joey Cheek is 47. Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, 55 years old today. Basketball Hall of Famer Clyde the Glide Drexler is 63. If you have a birthday today, happy birthday. You share it with quarterback legend Davey O'Brien, born on this day in 1917, 30 years before Pistol Pete Maravich was born in 1947. Producer Tony, what are your thoughts as we start today?
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And it was a great weekend for sports. But you know what? If you're a Michigan fan, the news this morning out of Ann Arbor, if you are a Michigan basketball fan, I'm going to give you a couple seconds here. Go grab the Maalox, the Tums. You might need a few Zantac to go with it because this is not good news. According to CBS Sports' Gary Parrish, Dustin May is leaving the University of Michigan to take over as the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks and Cooper Flagg. Yes, you heard me right, folks. Dusty May is leaving Michigan, going to Dallas, taking over, and is going to coach Cooper Flagg and the Dallas Mavs. You know, the last NBA, college to NBA coach was also a Michigan head coach. That was John Beilein in the Cavs back in 2019. That didn't turn out so well. There's been a few over the past 15 years, including Fred Hoiberg, Billy Donovan, Brad Stevens. None are still currently coaching in the NBA. Good luck to Dusty May, and sorry for you Wolverine fans, but here's hoping you can find a new coach rather quickly. The players, by the way, of that squad have 15 days to decide if they want to enter the transfer portal and find a new school since May is leaving Michigan. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, yesterday was a big day for Wyndham Clark. He jumped onto the scene 3 years ago at the U.S. Open in L.A., winning his very first major. Hasn't won one since. His most notable event since that time might have been destroying lockers at Oakmont during last year's U.S. Open and then throwing a club at the PGA Championship and taking a hunk out of a course sign with that move. You know, people in New York remember that. They weren't happy, and he got a lot of boos and a lot of jeers to go along, but he managed to hang on, take the U.S. Open title. He had a 6-shot lead going in. And of the 21 golfers who have had a 6-shot lead in a major going into the final round, 20 went on to win it, make it 21 with Wyndham Clark, the only one not to do it, Greg Norman at the 96 Masters. So Wyndham Clark is your 2026 U.S. Open champion for this year, taking it by one shot over Sam Burns.
Time now for today's moment of awe. Joe Louis is today considered one of the greatest boxers of all time, but there was a time when that wasn't so. Born the 7th of 8 kids to former slaves in rural Alabama, the Brown Bomber was a whopping 11 pounds at birth. His family moved to Detroit when Joe was 12 as part of the Great Migration. That's where his mother wanted Joe to learn to play the violin, but when he left for lessons, the story is that he carried his boxing gloves in his violin case instead. Fast forward to this day in 1937 when Joe Louis realized a dream. The up-and-comer, shocking the boxing world by knocking out James J. Braddock in the 8th round at Chicago's Comiskey Park to become the world heavyweight champion at age 23. And Louis would hold on to that belt for 12 years, winning 25 consecutive title defenses, a streak that remains a record for all weight classes to this day, and those 12 years still the longest run for any boxing champion ever. Joe Louis becoming a boxing champ for the ages on this day gets our moment of awe.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ continues right now. As we promised earlier, we'll talk a little NBA as hard to believe the draft is now just about a month away. And joining us now, he's a scout for No Ceilings. Stephen Gillespie is here on the show. Stephen, good to see you. Hopefully you're having a good start to your weekend.
Yeah, Larry, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Always a pleasure to talk NBA draft with people. And yeah, good start to my week. I hope everything is good on your end.
Yeah, it sure is. Excited about watching these NBA conference finals. Of course, NHL Stanley Cup ongoing. But let's start with this NBA draft coming up as we're beginning to see some players on the fringe make their decisions if they're going to stay in the draft or return to school. But we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start first at the very top right now. I've been someone I'm not a big fan of having all freshmen go in the top 10 or the entire lottery, but we could have a lottery possibly that could be all freshmen or very heavily freshmen starting at the top right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you look at even at the start of this draft cycle, Larry, we had Darren Peterson and AJ Dybantsa were the consensus guys. You can throw Cam Boozer in there. Some people were really high, still very much so are. Those were like the big three headliners coming into the cycle. And obviously we knew that all three of those guys were going to be freshmen, probably going to be one and done. But we had so many guards, so many even forwards kind of work their way up. Caleb Wilson coming out of UNC. Some people were really big on him coming in, but, North Carolina hasn't really done the best over the past couple of seasons. And I don't even think the highest end optimist of Caleb Wilson could have expected, the level of passing field that he showcased this year, the touch on his mid range, the rebounding. The defense was sort of intermittent, if you will, but he showcased to be one of the best freshmen in the country as well, and might even be the second or third player selected in this draft based on everything that we at No Ceilings are hearing from folks in the NBA. And then you have the home run glut of guards that are in this class too, with Darius Akov, Michael Brown, Keaton Wagler, Kingston Flemings, all in the freshman ranks just kind of work their way up. And then you even have some guys kind of come out of the blue a little bit, such as Abuko Okori out of Stanford, another freshman guard that just kind of suffering from the depth of guards and one and done prospects within this class.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it seem like is it Dybantsa right now the number one to Washington? Is that what you feel where we are coming out of some of these camps here in May?
I think so. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, Washington is probably doing their entire due diligence and evaluating how Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, probably even Caleb Wilson might fit onto their roster. But if you look at AJ Dybantsa, he just fits so much of like that prototypical sort of perimeter oriented wing forward sort of player that the NBA is so fond of. It's about 6'10" right now. The young man probably not even done growing, already has a sort of frame that can absorb physicality. And he just sort of fits what Dawkins and that DC staff have done over the past couple of draft classes. You look at players such as Will Riley, Bilal Coulibaly, these kind of long, lanky players that they're sort of coveting over in Washington. AJ seems to check the prototypical forward boxes plus the sort of versatility that Washington has shown to value.
Yeah, Will Riley had a fantastic last 6 weeks of the season. I mean, boy, what just a sponge he's been. The former Canadian played at Illinois and now hitting into his second season. And he, reclassified. So actually, I believe he should be just a college freshman right now, if I'm not mistaken. It appears that the top four are pretty much set. Do you see anybody else coming in and sneaking their way into the top four other than you mentioned again, Dybantsa, Peterson, Boozer, and Wilson?
I think it's going to be pretty much set in stone as much as it can be this early on. I mean, they're still doing workouts and intel gathering. I think the one player right now that is gaining a lot of momentum to maybe break into that tier of prospect would be Michael Brown Jr., the freshman guard out of Louisville. He kind of had a segmented season to where early on in the year, he was showing, playmaking flashes. He was attacking the basket, things of that nature. He ended up hurting his back, missed a little bit of time. And then when he came back, we started seeing more of that 3-point marksmanship that he showed in FIBA play over the summertime. So we got to see a little bit of everything from Michael, but it wasn't really, consistent or streamlined all into one, showcase as it was for guys like Keaton Wagler, players like that. But now he's getting in front of people. He's doing interviews. He's, measuring well. He had one of the longest, if not the longest, wingspans in Chicago for that guard position. And he just plays like a star guard. He has that good size, good length, very creative and imaginative. He's got that bend and lean on top of the sort of handle that's probably the best within this class. And he showcased some unique and, dynamic athleticism on the defensive end. I think back to this one play that he did earlier in the year where he's on defense, the offense is trying to capitalize in transition. He jumps up in midair, kind of one hand grabs Spider-Man throws in midair off of the steal in one fluid motion, steals the ball and advances it up to court to a teammate for a transition play. Just the sort of thing that you're not going to find outside of the top four other than with Michael Brown himself.
Yeah. Another name that we're seeing rising really throughout, really since they won the national title is Adai Mara, the 7'3" center of Michigan, who, again, his measurables were greater than I think what scouts realized. And we've seen him go from, I think in March, he was a, fringe end of the first round to possibly now, not just a lottery pick, but potentially in the top 10.
And what's making it interesting too, I've been kind of workshopping this idea with the rest of the folks over at No Ceilings, but if you look at what the NBA playoffs are showing us right now, is that Victor Wembanyama is here to, kind of collect pelts and put them on his wall. And in the Western Conference, you really have to look at your team's roster construct and what's a better way to kind of help alleviate the impact of a Victor Wembanyama than a 7'3" big man who's shown that he can contribute in a winning manner, who has a 9'9" standing reach. So yeah, I'm looking at Amara and the passing ability that he has. He's shown that he can defend in space better than I think that he gets credit for. If you want to squint and look, you might be able to talk yourself into some shooting touch, but collectively, all the big man things that NBA bigs have to do in the league today to include playmaking, he has it. So I'm looking at teams in the Western Conference right now that are picking, according to consensus, a lot of these teams such as Sacramento and Dallas, they're supposed to be, drafting guards based on consensus best player available. But I'm looking at the Victor Wembanyama extravaganza right now and thinking, like, does a Western Conference team such as Dallas, maybe, do they look to try to draft a Adai Mara even if he's available to them at 9,
Yeah. Well, because you can't teach size and you can't teach wingspan, right? And so you're right. Correct. He has all those intangibles that you can see why he's gotten some attention now suddenly. You mentioned a couple of times Keaton Wagler, the freshman guard out of Illinois, and came out of nowhere to be a consensus All-American. I can't recall, and I've been following this since the Magic Johnson days when I was a kid, right? A long time ago, a player like that came onto the scene. And in one season, I've compared his story to Steph Curry. I've said before that, there was a player who was overlooked by coaches, overlooked by scouts, ignored by coaches, ends up being a leading scorer for his team and takes him to the NCAA tournament, puts up a 20-point game in a stadium intended for football, and then lost to a blue blood in the end. You could say that was Keaton Wagler. You could also say that was Steph Curry. Curry, though, it took him 2 years to get there. Wagler took him 1. I've never seen that happen by anybody. There's some question about his athleticism, but it just feels like that his feel for the game and his basketball IQ is going to keep him in the top 10, and someone's going to take him there before the 10th pick.
I love that kind of parallel that you just illustrated there, Larry, between him and Steph Curry. That's such a fun, kind of way to look at his ascension. And you're right. There was a number of grassroots scouting outlets that just did not have him in their collective top 150s. And it's interesting because he was the Gatorade Player of the Year out of the state of Kansas. And I think that you look at him, Abuko Okori, another one, Alan Graves out of Santa Clara was Louisiana Gatorade Player of the Year. There might be something to at least scouting those 50
Right.
and seeing how good they might be. But back to Keaton Wagler, his ascension is so interesting. Coming from the state of Kansas, going on to a team that has a lot of upperclassmen, including Colin Boswell, the lead guard there, and he's no slouch of a player in of himself. Keaton steps in and showcases that he can, rebound and shoot right off the rip. Boswell goes out due to injury, and now all of a sudden, Wagler has to lead this team of, former professional athletes in some cases with the Ivicic brothers, right? And you're looking at how he's able to organize that team. And sure, he doesn't have the sort of athleticism to that of, like, let's say a Michael Brown Jr. or Darius Acuff Jr., but what he does have is that the floor just kind of moves around him. He just plays at his own pace. He can get to the basket. He passes people open. He can operate out of the pick and roll. So there's a little bit of initiator, lead guard archetype to him. But even if he's not the lead guard, even if you are worried about the athleticism, I feel like there's a little bit more safety aspect with him too, to where he's going to at least be a good complementary piece at the absolute bare minimum. So he does provide a safe floor as a floor spacer and maybe even a second side creator, even if things don't go as pie in the sky as what some people have for him.
It's an intriguing story to watch, and it's a fun story to keep track of. No question about that. I want to ask you about kind of on the other end of the spectrum. Is there a player who has used these last few weeks to play himself into the draft, maybe was planning to test the waters, go back to college, but now it appears is going to stay in the draft and looks to maybe be a second round pick?
Ooh, that's such a good one. One that's getting a lot of buzz is Matt Abel, the guard out of NC State. And this is such an interesting one too, because that team did have names, but did not perform up to the standard that a lot of people were anticipating. But Abel is showing that he's not like he doesn't have like the prototypical size of that of an off guard, but he is a dynamic scorer, good athlete, good shooter, shows good tools on the defensive end as well. And again, another one of these freshmen, this class is just riddled with freshman talent who stepped in and performed over their heads collectively. And I think Matt Abel is one of these guys to where if you look at the playoffs, you got to have guards, you got to have floor spacing, you got to have athleticism, strength, and defensive potential. He gives you a lot of those things. And he even showcased those in an ecosystem that I would argue is probably not the most, conducive for everything that he brings to the table.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. Anyways, we've seen two of these NBA playoffs. You need depth. Look at what Minnesota losing two guards for a stretch, and they had guards off the bench come up and not only propelled them to a win against Denver, but also to win a couple of games against San Antonio in that series as well. Steven, man, I have so many more questions, but I know we're out of time. You've got to run, and we've got to get moving too. Our sponsors are knocking at the door. But listen, love having you on. Hopefully, we can. We won't bug you here for a couple of weeks. When we get closer to draft time, we'll come knocking again to get your thoughts before we actually go to the draft.
Larry, this was a blast. Anytime that y'all need me, just let me know, and I will make myself available. I appreciate you all having me on.
All right. We appreciate it. Have a safe weekend, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. You do the same.
All right. Thanks so much. Stephen Gillespie joining us once again. He's a scout for No Ceilings and talking about giving some great insight right now on some teams that we know they're going to be there at the top, but also some guys to watch once we get past the first few 3 or 4 picks right now. This is going to be fun. Listen, again, I'm a guy I'm not big on the one and dones, but this is the year I make the exception. There are some fantastic talent, and we will see what they can do at the next level. Okay, the Sports IQ with Larry Smith continues after this.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past 2 years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if If you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You gotta call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
Welcome back here to the show as we continue our conversation. Producer Tony has some more news to pass along to you as well right now. Tony?
If you missed a couple of other things going on this weekend while you were celebrating Father's Day, this will get you caught up a little bit. Did you know that Kate Douglas broke the world record in the 50-meter freestyle at the Tier Pro Series meet in Indianapolis, becoming the first American woman to hold the record in the fastest event in swimming in the last 40 years. It hadn't been in American hands in the last 40 years. Douglas, who is the 2024 Olympic gold medalist in the 200-meter breaststroke, clocked a time of 23.59 seconds. She broke the world record of 23.61 seconds, set by Swede Sarah Snostrom at the 2023 World Championships. Okay, you know, the little guys are making it really interesting for the big boys at the World Cup so far, right? If you want to have an underdog to root for, how about Cabo Verde, the third smallest country to ever qualify for a World Cup? The Blue Sharks, as they are called, came into yesterday's games with Uruguay, fresh off a 0-0 draw with mighty Spain in their first match ever at the World Cup. Well, they got their first ever point in that game. Then yesterday, they got their first ever goal and their second ever point. Kevin Pina got the Sharks on the board in the 21st minute for that first ever goal. They still trailed 2-1 in the second half when Helio Valera scored in the 60th minute to knot it up at 2, and that is where the game ended. So another point for the Sharks, and they are now close to getting into the knockout round in their first ever World Cup. They can advance to the knockout round with a win over Saudi Arabia on Friday night. Good luck to the Sharks. In other games, Mohamed Salah scored the go-ahead goal, and Egypt went on to defeat New Zealand 3-1 on Sunday night and secure their first ever World Cup win. Salah celebrated his 68th international goal by pumping his fist before he was mobbed by teammates in the 67th minute of the game. And the crowd was thrilled. The red-clad Pharaohs fans were happier than can be at BC Palace in Vancouver. Now, Egypt stands atop the standings in Group G with the win. They're not yet guaranteed a spot in the knockout round, however. The Pharaohs play a deciding game against Iran on Friday in Seattle, needing at least a draw to advance. And, you know, this week is the NA. It's coming up not till Friday in Buffalo. But last night, the Senators and Panthers got together on a trade that is going to send reverberations around the league. For the second time since 2022, the Florida Panthers have made a big splash on the trade market by getting a member of the fabled Tkachuk family. This time, the Panthers have landed Brady Tkachuk from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for a slew of draft picks, this according to Sportsnet and ESPN. In exchange for Tkachuk, the Senators received two 2026 first-round picks, the number 9 and the number 25 in the first round coming up on Friday, a 2027 first-round pick, and a 2030 second-round pick. Just hours before swinging the deal for Kachuk, Florida acquired that number 25 pick in this year's draft from the Seattle Kraken in exchange for winger Mackie Samolevic. Brady is going to be united with his brother Matthew just a few months after the pair helped Team USA end its 46-year gold medal drought. And the duo will try to help the Panthers rebound from what was a very disappointing 2025-26 season that saw them miss the playoffs. They were really derailed by a boatload of injuries. They just never had a full complement of player as they tried to three-peat as Stanley Cup champions. So we'll have to see if they can get it done with some extra people in the family, so to speak. Tonight in Omaha, the college baseball season will come to a climactic ending when Oklahoma and North Carolina face off in a deciding Game 3 at the Men's College World Series. Oklahoma took Game 1 in convincing fashion Saturday. Denton LeChance homered twice off North Carolina ace Jason DeCaro early. The Sooners used a 4-run fourth inning to pull away for their ninth straight win, 9-3 over UNC. At that point in the College World Series, Oklahoma was averaging 9 runs a game. They were 9-0, dating back to their last 9 games. So with their proverbial backs to the wall Sunday, the Tar Heels stood their ground and came away with a 6-2 win. Oklahoma drew first blood with 2 runs in the first, and it looked like another romp for the Sooners. OU starting pitcher Xander Merkris was also on his game early. He struck out 6 of the first 7 Tar Heel batters that he faced. But then UNC took the lead with 3 runs in the third and chased Mercurius, who had thrown over 70 pitches through just the first 3 innings. So North Carolina turned the ball over to freshman Caden Glauber. He took over for the final 5 innings of the game. He allowed no runs on just 1 hit with 8 strikeouts. And get this story. Glauber has been quite the find for UNC. When he has pitched in a game this season, Carolina is 28-0. Do you think the Tar Heels are going to have him ready for at least an inning tonight in that title, Gil? The game is at 7 p.m. on ESPN. We're going to take a quick break, but some more NBA draft is on the way.
Sports IQ with Larry Smith, continuing now with the NBA draft. Hey, it's June, which means we are getting closer to having the next round of NBA superstars, we believe, being brought into the league in the way we call the NBA draft. And joining us once again, I mentioned at the top of the show, great to have him on. Matt Babcock, just a fantastic family. We've talked with Matt before last year around this time, talked to other relatives of his. He's an NBA scout and draft analyst for BabcockHoops.com. Be sure to go there and subscribe for the newsletter, for the mock draft coming up. Matt, great to have you back on the show. How are you?
Hey, Larry, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I want to dig into this. I've talked before that I traditionally have not been a proponent. I'm not a big fan of the one and dones. I just think that players do better with another extra year. This is the class that made me say, okay, because there's a level of freshmen here. You've got, really about 10 freshmen who are probably be the top 10 picks, it appears, at the moment, that are well deserving to just be one and done players and move on to the next level.
No, absolutely. I think this freshman class is about as good as I've seen, at least top to bottom. One thing that's interesting with that, though, as well, is with the new landscape of NIL, the early entrant player pool as a whole is trimmed down quite a bit. A lot of guys went back to school. But the cream of the crop, the lottery, probably the top 20, which is mostly freshmen, it really is an impressive group.
Yeah. Are we going to see where, we saw with Momcilovic from Iowa State, look, if you're going to get reportedly $6 million from Kentucky or whomever, there are some players at the end of the lottery that won't make that in 1 year. Are we getting close to seeing where there could be a player projected in the top 15 or 20 who may hold off the NBA in a year because he could make that kind of money in college and not have to jump for the dollars?
Absolutely. Actually, we already have. Thomas Houck from Florida was projected right in that range. Some people even thought he had a chance of being a lottery pick, and he elected to go back to Florida. And rumors are he's making upwards of $10 million. So, I mean, we'll see where college basketball goes and how sustainable this is as far as the money being that large. But if it continues at this rate or even just stays where it's at now, I do think there's going to continue to be a lot of interesting decision-making processes, whether the guys stay or go.
Yeah. How has that changed what you do, what NBA teams do in terms of evaluating players? And obviously with the deadlines, it's far enough out that you can then, adjust. But how has that changed this process from your end?
Yeah, I mean, I think college basketball and NIL has changed scouting quite a bit. And honestly, I like it. It simplifies things quite a bit. And there's a few angles I could take with this. One being a lot of the top international players are coming over to the States to go to school. And so we're not stretched quite as thin, just geographically. And the same idea of most of the top players are going to big schools as well. So I do very little scouting at mid-major schools or small D1s. I mean, there are outliers, but I mean, pretty much if we're covering these power four schools, we're seeing the bulk of the NBA prospects. And then with so many guys continuing to go back to school, and a lot of them, I think, will exhaust all of their eligibility and just kind of cash out as long as they can and continue to develop. We have a significantly larger sample size to evaluate these prospects. Obviously, what I think we'll always have the one and done. But I mean, if we're talking about 15 to 20 kids, it really does streamline and simplify the evaluation process.
That's a great point. Talking with Matt Babcock here at BabcockHoops.com. Again, NBA draft analyst and scout. Matt, I'm curious. There's the big conversation right now that there's the big four at the top of the draft, and they've been there for months now. It feels like these are the four: Dybantsa, Boozer, Caleb Wilson from UNC. Of course, I'm forgetting the fourth, but that they're going to be the top four picks. Is there any chance anyone else breaks into that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance. I mean, I think every front office, every team, operates differently. And sometimes, I mean, a lot of times this time of year, there's a lot of cloak and dagger, if you will, right? And so my expectation that the order will unfold as Dybantsa to Utah, to Washington, Darren Peterson to Utah, Cam Boozer to Memphis, and Caleb Wilson to Chicago. But, I mean, we've got 3 weeks until the draft. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, so we'll see.
Sure. Peterson was the one that I forgot, and the reason why is because every time I tried to watch Kansas, he wasn't playing or he took himself out or whatever. Are the scouts kind of satisfied that whatever was going on with him in his freshman year at Kansas will not be a problem moving forward?
I mean, it was a weird year. And I mean, what's funny, I saw Kansas, I think 4 or 5 times early in the season and didn't see him until I think conference play. And then I caught up and, saw him a couple times in person this year. But, I mean, as everybody saw, the optics were really bad with everything. I do think once they started sort of, filling in the details as far as what's going on, and then the combination of the teams talking with him and getting some medical testing, I do think all of those negative narratives have calmed down a lot. I mean, I do expect him to be the second pick in the draft.
I'm not surprised that AJ Dybantsa, you have him first. I've been impressed with him, even as a senior in high school. And obviously, I don't follow this with the expertise that you do, but just the eye test as a fan. What special characteristics does he have, in your expert opinion, that does set him apart from the other players?
I mean, I love Dybantsa. He's been a big name since, pretty much since he stepped foot in high school. And he just checks so many boxes. I mean, sometimes it feels like he was created in a video game. He's got prototypical size and athleticism and just a well-rounded skill set, especially as a scorer. I think he's got a chance, especially with NBA spacing, to be an elite scorer. And, not very often do guys come around that have the potential of being premier scorers. And then I think he's got potential defensively too. He's got room for growth as far as, locking in consistently. But I mean, the physical tools that he possesses, I do think allows him to potentially be a guy that's a plus defender at multiple positions. And so that's something that I do think separates him. From a talent standpoint, I think Peterson's right there too. I started the season with Peterson at number one, and I remember writing, and I think it was my first mock draft where I've got a little paragraph with each pick, and I put that with both these guys, it was sort of a 1A, 1B situation for me. And then with Dybantsa, just the year he had, I mean, he was very dominant and consistent at BYU. And then as we talked about Peterson's year, it was clunky. And so, I've given Dybantsa the edge. And my mock draft now is more of a projection than what I would do. But the projection does match my own evaluation. I would take Dybantsa as well.
Yeah. Another intriguing pick for me is Caleb Wilson. I did see him play in high school. I did play-by-play of his championship game. He was a man among boys in that game. I think he went for 33 and 13, just dominated the competition against a player a couple years younger than him, who is a potential future D1 prospect. He's somebody I think that going to whatever team, if it's the Bulls, could be a piece that Chicago could build around as they work with their new front office and try to rebuild what they've got there.
Absolutely. I mean, Caleb Wilson, I went into the year excited and intrigued by his upside. I questioned some things as far as, was he mature as a player? Did he always lock in? It seemed like he was a little rough around the edges as a young player, and he exceeded my expectations, and he did it very early in the year at Carolina. And just a tremendous talent that I think just scratching the surface of what he can become. And he's, very, very much a modern type player where I pencil him in as a power forward, but he's very much a face up, can do a lot of things with the ball, and just such a great vertical athlete. I mean, we've put together some highlight videos of some of the draft prospects, and when you watch his, these highlight tip dunks and alley-oops and blocks, just a very exciting player. And I think if he does end up in Chicago, which I expect him to, will likely be a fan favorite very quickly.
Yeah, no question about that. Koa Pete is one of the freshmen that stayed in the draft. A lot of conversation about maybe that he should have gone back to school for a sophomore year and worked at his game a bit with a second year with Arizona. What are your thoughts on Koa Pete on that and staying in the draft or going back to Tucson?
Yeah, it was kind of a roller coaster year with him. I actually started the season with a doubleheader in Vegas where Arizona beat Florida and Koa Pete had 30 points.
Yeah.
And, really the draft world, myself included, we're going nuts about him. And I think we all put him, in the mid lottery. And just from there on out, I think there was a combination of, a lot of players impressed and kind of improved their stock. And I think the more we digested what Koa was all about, some red flags were raised as far as his translation to the NBA game. He's a 6'7" power player, just doesn't have much of a perimeter game, and so I think that's the big issue with him. And then he went to the combine and he kind of tweaked his shooting mechanics, and it just didn't show that well. And so his stock has slipped. I was hoping he was going to go back to Arizona. I thought that would have been a good move for him, but I still think he'll go somewhere likely in the 20s. So it'll be a first-round pick, and he'll have time to claw his way in to establish himself as a long-term pro. Because, the fact of the matter is, even though the narrative with him has become somewhat negative, he's a tremendous athlete. He's very physically imposing, and I think he's got a lot of potential on the defensive end, too. So I'm rooting for him. He seems like a great kid and a talented player that stock has unfortunately just dipped throughout the year.
Sure. A player on the opposite trajectory is Keaton Wagler out of Illinois. Of course, the narrative now and having Illinois going to the Final Four, the whole country now knows that he was somebody that scouts and coaches overlooked and wound up being a second-team All-American and maybe the greatest freshman in Illinois history. A lot of mocks that he'll have him at number 5. What makes him such an intriguing prospect, and where do you have him going in the draft?
Yeah, just his storyline this year, I thought was really interesting. I didn't even know who he was, coming into the season, which is not typical for a guy that's a one and done lottery pick,
right?
But just not overly, highly ranked coming out of high school, and stepped on a team in Illinois like a very well established veteran team, and just did a lot of big things early and. Really generated a lot of buzz. And then what happened was, I think it was January maybe, and their point guard, Kylan Boswell, went down with a hand injury. So now they put this 6'5", 6'6" guard that's getting all this buzz. They put the ball in his hands at point guard. and he just went off. And so, yeah, I do think he's in that 5 to 10 range. I mean, I think there is a lot of competition in that range in the lottery. But this guy's 6'5", 6'6". You know, he's a young player. I mean, you just look at him, he's got a baby face. He hasn't developed physically, but he can do a lot of things. He just got a great feel for the game, can really shoot the ball with range, and he's effective on and off the ball. I think, if we're looking, a few years down the road, this guy might be an extremely good player.
Yeah, I think he's one of those. You're right that he's got to get a little more physical. I thought he was bounced around a bit. Second half of the Big Ten season, kind of the physicality got to him, but he really flourished. I thought as well as March played well, and he's got a bright future. Who's a player that you feel like could make a move and maybe be drafted higher than what we're hearing right now that may surprise us on draft night?
It's interesting with the player pool of underclassmen being so much smaller. I don't see there being a ton of surprises. Like I'm pretty comfortable with the consensus as far as what's publicly being perceived as players' ranges, at least in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of names that do come to mind that I think will go on their high side. I think Kingston Flemings. He's somebody that's looked at as being like mid lottery to late lottery. I've got him at number 5 to the Clippers. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to go on his high side. And then another guy who was really benefited from the run in March is AJ Mara from Michigan. Mm-hmm. Rumblings are that he's not even going to get out of the top 10. And so those are two guys that come to mind as far as I think they might go higher than some people expect.
Yeah. Another player of interest before I let you go, Yaxel Lindenborg was went into the draft process last year, backed out, transferred from UAB to Michigan, and of course, Big Ten Player of the Year, and was, led them to the national title. Does his age scare teams off, or is his potential just so great that he's going to be likely land in the lottery? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a variable in the equation you have to take a look at. We actually, a writer and scout of mine, Logan Eby, wrote a very detailed, thoughtful article about this. About the evaluation process with Yaxel, and the point he makes is that there should be a basketball age, and what he means by that is Yaxel didn't start playing basketball at a high level until later, and so his pathway for development started later, and so that way we should be looking at him as a younger prospect rather than just his actual age. Mm-hmm. And so with Yaxel, I think I liked him last year. Our scouting staff liked him a lot last year. I thought he had a good chance of being a high pick if he had stayed in last year's draft. And obviously we all saw what happened in Michigan. And so even though, I think there is an argument that, okay, he's an older player, how much room for growth is there? Even if there's not, he's capable of being a very productive player day one. And so I do think he will be a solid pick, probably somewhere in that, the 10 to 20 range.
Yeah, great stuff, Matt. I'm out of time. And I'm sure you are too. I could go on for another hour with the questions, but we appreciate your time and look forward to watching the draft here. And again, we encourage everyone, be sure to go on BabcockHoops.com and subscribe. Make sure you lock in and get the great stuff from Matt when he puts it out. Matt, appreciate your time, man. Enjoy the month. We'll talk to you soon.
No, thanks so much. Take care.
Okay, appreciate it, brother. Matt Babcock, once again, he's an NBA draft analyst and scout for BabcockHoops.com. Be sure to check that out as we have as well. Okay, more Sports IQ with Larry Smith coming up.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems. And the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
Welcome back to the Sports IQ with Larry Smith. Producer Tony sitting in for Larry again, who is enjoying a literal Father's Day weekend time with the family. If you are a tennis fan, you're going to love this next news. The greatest women's single player of all time is going to come back and play singles at Wimbledon. That's right. Serena Williams, who announced earlier this month that she was going to play in the doubles competition alongside her sister Venus, has also entered now for the singles competition at Wimbledon. It'll be the first Grand Slam competition she has competed in since the 2022 U.S. Open, where she reached the third round before bowing out of the event. But she's felt good. She's been tuning up for the last year. The 44-year-old is ready to take on the challenge of playing both singles and doubles draws at Wimbledon. She's already in London preparing for that comeback, and she's taking the advantage to show her daughters, Olympia and Adira, around the place that she once dominated. Good luck, Serena. What a great story that would be if she can come back and make a finals and maybe win another singles championship. We're rooting for you. At the WNBA last night, Enrique Ogunwoke hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to lift the Los Angeles Sparks to a 98-97 victory over the New York Liberty. And it's the anniversary of the first game ever in WNBA history, which, by the way, featured the same two teams. The Sparks lost that inaugural game in 1997 and trailed by 17 points in the third quarter before rallying behind Ogumake, who finished with 24 points. On the final play, Erica Wheeler drove, flipped the ball out to Ogumake, who calmly sank the 3-4-pointer just before the buzzer from the wing. Breanna Stewart had hit one of two from the foul line with just under 9 seconds left to give New York a 2-point lead. And we don't think we've forgotten about the baseball scene, because we haven't. You know, a couple of players really had a great Father's Day weekend, and they both just happened to play for the Phillies, Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. On Saturday, the Phils hammered the Mets 15-3. Schwarber, he just went 4 for 5, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, scored 4 runs. Not too bad. Bryce Harper said, hold my beer. He hit for the cycle. He also went 4 for 5 and had 3 RBIs. Well, just to make sure that they finished off the weekend in proud fashion, they did it again on Sunday in the series finale. Schwarber and Harper each homered for the second straight game, and Philly beat New York 6-2. Good job for those guys. They had a great Father's Day weekend. Chase Burns pitched 5 innings of 1-run ball and survived 6 stolen bases for his 8th straight win, and the Reds beat the Yankees 4-1 on Sunday. Burns, who's now 9-1, allowed just 1 run on 5 hits. He struck out 7 and walked 3, and he is the first Reds pitcher to win 8 straight decisions since Tom Browning did it back in 1989. Colton Cowser tied his career high with 4 RBIs. Pete Alonso added a 3-run homer, and the Orioles beat the Dodgers 12-1 on Sunday. Cowser, who had 3 hits, including that home run, as he notched 4 RBIs for the 5th time in 4 seasons in the majors, helped the Orioles take the series this weekend over the Dodgers. Brandon Young allowed just 1 run on 5 hits in 5 innings, and the Orioles are now 10-2 when Young starts this season. Too bad they don't have other starting pitchers equally as capable. They might be able to do something in that AL East, but again, the Orioles failing to address that rotation issue in the offseason, and it is coming back to bite them once again. Maybe next year, O's fans, I'm one, hoping for the O's to have a big season. It just hasn't turned out that way. That is going to do it for this edition of the Sports IQ. Larry will be back in the chair tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great day. For Larry, for Josh, for myself, producer Tony, have a wonderful day. We'll see you here tomorrow on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.
If you're a diabetic, we have great news. You can end the painful finger sticks with a new CGM. Plus, they may be covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. If you test and inject daily, you may qualify. Call US Med now to learn more.
800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. That's 800-390-5160.